Silver City Comet, heralded as the first air-conditioned train in Australia, began its life in the mid-1930s, with the initial 5 carriages being made in Auburn, Sydney by Ritchie Brothers, and the 5 power vans made by Everleigh Carriage Works, which were all fitted with the Hollandic engines made by the famous Harland and Wolff in Belfast, Ireland, the same company that made the Titanic. On the 7th of July 1937, the Comet began its trial runs between Sydney and Moss Vale, and by September of that year they had been passed to provide service between Parkes and Broken Hill 3 times a week, which is a distance of 422 miles or 679 kilometres one way. Passengers travelling on the Silver City Comet had the option of travelling in first or second class, with 4 first class carriages being built, 4 second class carriages, and 4 second class carriages with buffet facilities. The buffet facilities were available to all passengers, where you could buy scones, cakes, tea and coffee, and sandwiches, and also there were dining options for lunch with roast beef, York ham and salad, and frankfurts if you wanted something hot. It was also possible to buy cigars, cigarettes and tobacco from the attendant on request. After a successful year of service in 1937, the Comet's timetables changed to a daily service in 1938, but was then reduced back to 3 times a week in 1939. The Comet service had started to already show its importance to the far west communities of New South Wales by connecting the Western Mail service from Sydney to Broken Hill, which remained part of the Comet's duties until 1986 when it was discontinued. During the war years, the Comet's famous silver livery was repainted to Tuscan and russet with yellow lining and remained that way until the 1970s. The rolling stock was also used on other services during the war, including the Federal City Express, which linked Sydney to Canberra, and even on the Newcastle Flyer on the odd occasion. During the 1950s, the Comet went through a period of refurbishment so it could match the new air-conditioned rub and hub cars. During this period, 2 buffet cars were converted to full dining cars, and 2 parcel vans were added to keep up with the decreased luggage space, which had originally been in the section of each power car, but due to a difficulty sourcing parts, the Harlandic engines were replaced with GM diesels, which reduced the space in the power cars. In January of 1950, the first loss of rolling stock occurred when the power van 105 was destroyed by fire at Ivanhoe in the far west of New South Wales. Later, 102 was withdrawn from service in 1982 after being struck at a level crossing by a truck in Forbes. The Central West XPT arrived on time to Orange at 12:40 p.m. on the 24th of June 1989. Sitting across the platform was DP 101, leading the Silver City Comet. The diesel exhaust of both trains filled the nostrils of the passengers as they alighted the XPT. Those passengers that were travelling to Broken Hill excitedly boarded the 52-year-old train that was in stark difference from the XPT they had just left. Passengers only had a short time to get their seats on the Silver City Comet. Departure was at 12:50, ready for the next leg towards Broken.
Please, hurry up.
The trip from Orange to Parkes seemed uneventful to the passengers as they enjoyed long straight stretches of track, highlighted by the odd curve or passing freight train. Little did the passengers realise that the crew were busy behind the scenes dealing with an overheating engine which was only apparent by the progressively late arrivals into Molong and Manildra. By the time the comet had arrived, it was 30 minutes late into Parkes and arrived at 3:25 p.m. instead of the timetable 2:57 p.m. The crew had called through to the depot in Parkes where the Comet's power cars were housed and had arranged for the failed DP-101 to be replaced by DP-104. The yard staff had wasted no time prepping DP-104, and once DP-101 was detached from the cars, they had swapped the power cos over. This gave the rail enthusiast a great opportunity to get some excellent footage of both engines, but the passengers that were not interested grumbled about the late running. As a consequence of the overheating engine of 101 and the swap, the Comet ended up being an hour and a half late out of Parkes, but left us with some great pictures and some memories that I'll never forget. I personally think that this maintenance issue highlighted the rail and yard crew's professionalism, but foreshadowed what was to come later that year. Now running behind schedule, the crew would get back to the job at hand of trying to make up for some lost time. The vintage train showed its true colours and got up to speeds of over 100 kilometres an hour on the straight stretches of track. The views of the far west New South Wales countryside were spectacular, with the orange soil and the brush scrub highlighted by the odd grain silo and freight train sitting in sidings waiting for the Comet to pass. As the shadows grew longer through the afternoon, passengers could enjoy some light refreshments from the buffet car. There was still a service attendant on duty at this late stage in the Comet's life that would come through the cars announcing that food was available. I took this opportunity to head down to the parcel van, where the guard on duty let me film through the open door. The track shot behind us at great speed as the Comet made its way towards Broken Hill. The parcel van was filled with boxes of fruit and vegetables that would be delivered to the smaller settlements as we passed through. The boxes of bananas filled the majority of the space, but there were the odd sacks or two of mail that were to be dropped off as well. I asked the guard what his thoughts were on the demise of the Comet, and in a sad tone he told me he thought it was the end of something special and that he had a special place in his heart for the Comet. He felt strongly that the small towns were going to suffer the most as they were losing their lifeline to the east of the state. That night, the Comet led by DP 101 arrived just after 1 AM, having made up about 20 minutes of lost time. The weary passengers disembarked onto the platform at Broken Hill, having spent 12 hours with the Comet. 12 hours that they would never forget. By mid-1989, the decision had already been made to retire the Comet from service. The reason that was given was that the Comet had become too old and too expensive to run. There were so many staff changes that had to be made in the distance that it travelled that it just became too expensive, and the government decided that they weren't going to run it anymore. This decision had left the people of Ivanhoe and Menindee without a regular rail service connection to the city. There was uproar on the 3rd of November 1989. The final run of the Comet made its way to Broken Hill. It wouldn't be a smooth trip though. Chief Executive of State Rail, Ross Sayers, had decided to accompany the Comet on its final run and to open up the new service by bus to Broken Hill. The locals at Ivanhoe decided to let him know how important the Comet was to them by a peaceful protest. Finally, after some delay, the Comet was able to leave Ivanhoe and be on its way. But the protest wasn't over, as the locals at Menindee had also decided to express their feelings on the importance of the Comet service.
Don't give a bugger about us out in the bush. That's the only communication we got with the city. Our only communication with the city. What about Ivanhoe?
The protest turned to a little bit more of a serious side when the locals blocked the track with a car. But eventually cool heads prevailed and it was moved without police intervention.
Righto, kids, hold off please. Somebody who's going to get hurt, and it's Jack. Come on. We've had a peaceful protest. Let's not mess it up.
Again, the Comet was on its way to its final destination, Broken Hill. The Comet was now 5 hours late, but the locals at Broken Hill had waited.
The Silver City Laser will also provide a daily service to Cobar and Ningham.
Carr will be the next Premier, and the Silver Comet will come back into service when Labor gets in at the next state election. Tell Brian that.
Power car DP101 and 4 cars are now preserved at Suffolk Street Station at Broken Hill, along with other exhibits of our rail history, the tin roof protecting it from the elements. Power car DP104 and 4 cars are preserved by the New South Wales Rail Museum at Thirlmere, and Dorrigo Steam Railway Museum also has power car DP103 and 4 cars. The Silver City Comet service has now faded into our rail history, but not faded from our hearts.